the nervous system part 4. Now we're going to look at the structure of the nerves in more detail, and we're going to look at how nerves talk to each other, which is across gaps that we call synapses. So, a neuron, a nerve cell, they've got two main parts. We have these little branchy bits where we've got multiple branches, which are called dendrites. It's still a normal animal cell, so we still have a nucleus within it. And we have this big area where the nucleus is, which we call the cell body. We then have a long axon, and that axon then has terminal buttons, bits at the end, which is where it will link to the next cell. Many nerves also have a myelin sheath. Now the myelin sheath is necessary for speeding up the nerve impulses. So it allows the nerve impulse to travel more quickly down it. Okay. When we are sending a message, we're sending it in the form of electrical impulses, which means it's very fast. It is an electrical impulse. It's not electricity as it flows across the wire, but it is a charge differential. So the dendrite, these bits here, pick up the message. They send it along through the cell body, and that keeps the message going. And then that sends it down to the axon. And if we have a myelin sheath there, that causes it to jump and it insulates it until it gets to the axon terminal. These buttons here, terminal buttons we sometimes call them, and that sends the message along to the next one. The gap between this and the next one is what we call the synapse. Okay. Now, it says here, be careful how we phrase this content. Students accidentally suggest that neurons travel between the PNS and the CNS. Got to be careful here. When we talk about the passage of an impulse, what we're talking about is the movement of that electrical signal. The nerves don't move. Okay? Now, if you are answering questions, you need to make sure that you talk about the movement of an electrical impulse, not the movement of nerves or the movement of neurons. So let's get on to it. So we had one dendrite, one cell body, one axon. Let's pretend that this is the axon of one, and here's our terminal button, and it's got a message. It's going to pass it to this dendrite. Okay? And that dendrite is then going to pass this message along here until it gets to its axon, and it's going to pass it to the dendrite of the next one. So if this is an interneuron, we've got a message coming in from a sensory neuron, and that message going out to a motor neuron. Okay? We have electrical impulses that pass from here to here, but then there, we've got a gap. Okay, and this hand actually can't reach out and grab the electrical impulse. What it can grab is the equivalent of this little piece of paper, which is a chemical. It's a physical chemical, and it's called a neurotransmitter. Okay, you've probably heard of some neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, that kind of thing. We pass a chemical from one to the other, and that is then, when it's picked up here, that starts up an electrical impulse in this next neuron. Okay. So, a stimulus comes in, it goes along the dendrite cell body axon. Okay. When it gets to this axon, down in that terminal button, what we've got here are these little packages, vesicles we call them. Okay, and they contain in them these little black dots, and those little black dots are our neurotransmitter. When a message comes along here, what that causes is these little vesicles to move to the edge and release their neurotransmitter into this gap. And they move from this side to that side. Okay, just by simple diffusion. And it's not a big gap here, so they'll travel across. When they get to the other side, there are these receptors. So these things here, which are waiting, ready to go. You got anything for me? You got anything for me? And when one of the neurotransmitters comes and grabs them, that starts an electrical impulse in our next neuron. Okay. This is showing you the same thing. So in this case, these are our neurotransmitters. When it flashes, that was our electrical impulse. So electrical impulse, we release them, they go across, and then this one flashes because our electrical impulse gets taken up. And you did see they did go back and get reabsorbed by the original one, so we can use them again. When you get to class, you will do a little model looking at how these things are moved across, just to help you solidify that idea.